Hi, everyone. Sean Walbin with Secure Cyber Defense, and this is your weekly cybersecurity update. Well, yesterday we closed out the Ohio Information Security Conference at Sinclair Community College. This is a yearly Technology First event. They have two big events each year. One is the OISC, or the Ohio Information Security Conference, that's held in March, and then I believe around October, November is the Taste of IT. So this was the cybersecurity focused conference, and this was also the first year that Dayton Defense merged their federal track into OISC. So I want to thank everyone at Technology First. I want to thank everyone that came by our booth, that got to see us, and the folks we got to visit with. It was a wonderful time, and we're looking forward to seeing you all next year. Well, it's patch week. Microsoft came out with 60 vulnerabilities. 4 of those were Chromium-based that were impacting the Edge browser. 2 of them were critical with Hyper-V, and it was interesting. There was actually a Microsoft Authenticator vulnerability that was patched. That particular vulnerability, if someone would have had control over that device, they could have had access to all of your codes. So, that really pushes the agenda a little bit more, that we're hoping to dive into a little bit more with FIDO technology and YubiKeys. So moving from the one-time password technologies over to something like FIDO or FIDO2, which actually Secure Cyber Defense has moved to YubiKey technology just in the last 30 days. So hopefully more on that later, but that vulnerability certainly increases the need for that conversation. Cisco had just recently, at the time of going to air, came out with a number of vulnerabilities for the Cisco iOS, as well as Adobe, Adobe Premiere Pro, Cold Fusion, Bridge, Lightroom, and Animate are the main products that Adobe came out with from a vulnerability perspective. And Fortinet is back in the news with updates to the FortiOS, as well as a critical vulnerability for FortiClient EMS. So if you utilize the FortiEMS, which is the centralized management component for FortiClient, make sure that you're getting that system patched as soon as you possibly can. JetBrains came out with a vulnerability. This is a software manufacturer that is, I think, mainly produces software for development departments. This was a particularly interesting vulnerability. It actually started last year with a number of vulnerabilities that were being exploited by Russian cyber actors. So, the reason this comes up is because from our business perspective, we run into a lot of situations where a vulnerability like that comes out, and we have documentation showing that a particular client has this particular software. And it's interesting sometimes when we reach out to them and they say, no, we don't have that particular software, but we can tell in our threat hunting system that they do. So thankful for threat hunting technologies and the ability to be able to identify who has what, but please take an inventory of the software and systems that you do have, your third-party vendors, any of your cloud software systems. Just have a really good inventory of what you have so that when those vulnerabilities do come out, that you're able to identify what systems are impacted and get those cleared up as soon as possible. Apple also came out with updates for macOS Sonoma to 14.4. In reading the bulletin, they were clearing up about a dozen vulnerabilities. And then don't forget, last week, there were 2 urgent iOS updates where Apple had identified 2 critical vulnerabilities, and 2 of those were actively being exploited as 0 days. So in a little bit of the cybersecurity news, Nissan has confirmed a ransomware attack. This originally happened back in December of 2023. The Akira ransomware group had claimed responsibility for that particular attack. It actually started in their offices in Australia and New Zealand. Some personal employee information, as well as NDAs, project data, and other information on partners and clients was impacted. And that's an interesting topic. We've had situations where we've picked up on attacks with other companies, and we've discovered that some of our customers' information was actually impacted in a third-party ransomware attack. The reason that is interesting is because in a couple of those cases, our customers weren't notified of the third-party breach, and customers were questioning, hey, I thought we were in business together, I thought we had a relationship, and basically some of those third parties came back and said, look, there's nothing in our contract that mandates us to notify you if we had come under a ransomware attack. So it just leads to the conversation to have discussions with your third parties and with your vendors. What is in those contracts? What is the responsibility of that third party? If they were to have a security incident, just a general requirement to be notified to keep you in the know, so that you can take precautions against that. So back to the Nissan attack, of all that personal information that was taken, 4,000 instances of Medicare cards, 7,500 driver's licenses, 220 passports, and 1,300 tax file numbers. Now, just think about the impact that all of that information has on an individual. If somebody had my driver's license info, my passport data, I'm not to the Medicare stage yet, although it might look like it. Or 1,300, tax file numbers. What if they had all my, tax filing information? That's a tremendous amount of personally identifiable information. Then Nissan is providing credit monitoring for all of the impacted individuals, which is completely normal. It's a normal response. That's protocol. So what can you do? Watch your bank accounts, look for suspicious transactions, enable multi-factor authentication, and certainly change your passwords daily. And use a password manager. I'm hoping to do some future shows on password managers and how to use them. But that is, those are generally examples of things that you can do to keep your information safe and freeze your credit. A lot of people are like, wow, that sounds really super complicated. All three of the major credit bureaus have information on how to secure your credit. So that's something that you should definitely look into. So hackers have been exploiting the Windows Smart Screen. We'll show a picture of what that looks like. It'll all look very familiar to you. So when you go to install software on a Windows device, sometimes you'll get that blue box that comes up that says, "Hey, Windows Smart Screen is trying to get involved." So hackers had figured out a way to exploit Windows Smart Screen, which is based out of Windows Defender. There is an update for that. So as long as your machine has gone through the update cycle, then you should be protected from this particular attack. Now, let's talk about something I talked about yesterday at the OISC conference. In order to verify that this has been done, one of the main tools that you can take to bear bring to bear is a vulnerability scanner. And I had noticed, vulnerability scanners probably 5 years ago. I've been doing secure cyber defense for 9 years. And I remember at the very beginning how vulnerability scanners were considered like a premium add-on. Most companies that were just getting started were not looking at vulnerability scanning, but vulnerability scanning is probably one of the most critical things that you can have in your arsenal today. It's the way that you're going to find if you have vulnerabilities. It's the way, in this particular case, if you were patching for the Smart Screen update, that's how you would find out that if that patch took and if you're cleared. And then you're able to do targeted scans as well. So if a particular vulnerability comes out that you would like to just scan for that and not do a complete vulnerability scan for your entire network, a vulnerability scanner would allow you to just scan for one CVE across your entire environment. One of the other things, there's been a lot of advancements in vulnerability scanners. I think some of them are more economical than they used to be. It used to be some of your major players like Nessus, Qualys, and Rapid7 were kind of the three that you had to choose from. And I think I know there are a number, because we're testing some of them today, a number of software-based, cloud-based vulnerability scanners. So take a look at that. I think that would be something that you should be adding on to what you're doing today. CISA had come out with a lot of information involving the Avanti attack. And I also talked about this yesterday because we're seeing some really unprecedented times in regards to vulnerabilities and patches for some of these software and hardware manufacturers. For example, back last year, Barracuda had a vulnerability in their one of their gateway appliances. And it had actually got to the point where they had tried to patch it, and it was so compromised that there was a recommendation from Barracuda to just basically destroy the device. Take it out of the rack, perform Office Space on it, a sledgehammer, take it out back, and just destroy the thing. That's incredible. And following this Ivanti attack, which actually impacted CISA itself, so CISA had made a disclosure last week that they were impacted by the Ivanti attack, and it had actually got to the point where reading some of the updates that the Ivanti, they were actually alluding to the fact that maybe the patching of the Ivanti wasn't working, and even reboots were not solving the problem. So, just some words of wisdom here. I was having a meeting with a vendor this morning for one of our customers, and just kind of going over some basic security practices. Look up things like Secure by Design and Software Bill of Materials, or SBOMs. Those are two. I know there's other stuff in the news like AI and behavioral learning and all these types of things, but Secure by Design and Software Bill of Materials, or SBOMs, are two things that you should become familiar with. Secure by Design is basically a directive or an effort to push on the software and hardware manufacturers to basically make systems secure out of the box, instead of basically providing you a blank slate and expecting you to just figure out how to make it secure. And then Software Bill of Materials are just ways that you can make RFPs. So the request for proposal stage, you can start including SBOM wording to basically make the software manufacturer or the cloud provider dictate to you what DLLs, what driver libraries, what software libraries, an inventory of what makes up that software, because that was something that really became an issue during Log4j. And if you remember Log4j and everything that went along with that, it was very difficult. Everybody was just kind of scattering, trying to figure out, well, okay, who do I use that's impacted by Log4j? What systems do I have in-house that are Log4j? And the Software Bill of Materials, I highly recommend that you go on the CISA site. Those are both CISA activities. So Secured by Design and Software Bill of Materials, definitely two things that we're putting on the board to go into a little bit more detail to educate you on, basically just how to be better at cyber. That's all I have for this week. I want to thank you for tuning in. And again, everyone that came out to the OISC conference, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for all of our customers and everyone that that we got to interact with. We'll be back next week with an update on vulnerabilities and everything in the news. So until then, have a great weekend.